Have you ever thought about moving to Japan?
If you want to get the f out of the US and move abroad to Japan.
How to actually move to Japan.
Welcome to my Japanese apartment.
Based in Japan.
In Japan?
I think Japan's great.
In Japan. Japan.
Japan.
Oh, you go to Japan, you're gonna meet all these ladies. Not true. I don't meet one.
According to the internet, it's either a perfect utopia or a racist cesspool. So, as your standard issue white guy in Japan, I've compiled the top 10 questions I get asked about living in Japan as a foreigner to help you decide whether to quit your job and move to Tokyo or stick to watching anime from a safe distance. Let's start with an easy one. Question 1. Can you get by with only English in Japan? Fuck no. You must become fluent in Japanese, or Nihongo as they call it, to flourish as a resident. Traveling is different unless you're a tech-illiterate boomer, clicking on an image of Google Translate and shouting at your phone. It's easy enough to scan menus and point to things. But if you want to, talk to locals, open a bank account, get a phone number, go to the doctor, get a job. It's hard. Tokyo is worse than other tourist-heavy cities in Asia, and somewhere like Kyoto, forget about using English. I personally use Naruto hand signs to communicate, but I've been told that's racist and generally frowned upon. In Japan, kids who speak English too well in school actually get bullied for not being Japanese enough. I would never read an article for you guys, but this website I've never heard of made a graph, and it shows Japan's English proficiency falling since 2011, so that's obviously true. If you speak no Japanese and plan to move here long term, you won't have a good time. But you don't speak Japanese. I have a godlike presence that transcends language. Old Spice has a product for that. Aha, what a well-executed segue into our second question. Is the Gaijin seat a real thing? Gaijin, the Japanese word for foreigner, is used oftentimes derogatorily, and in this example means do Japanese people refuse to sit next to stinky, gross foreigners? My experience may not be emblematic because, I mean, even lesbians and straight men are drawn to this. But the Gaijin seat is more exaggerated than Reddit would have you believe. You may be the lowest creature in the ecosystem. Like, first choice is an open seat, next choice is next to a Japanese person, final choice is next to your dumbass. But if this fear was preventing you from achieving your dreams, seek help. Speaking of, question 3. Is public transportation really that incredible? The trains in Tokyo are amazing. You can't walk more than 5 minutes without hitting a train station, but it is illegal to damage property, so keep that in mind. Trains are rarely late, unless someone jumps on the tracks, which honestly happens enough that you get desensitized to it, but lateness is largely irrelevant given how often trains come. That's not everywhere, though. Kyoto, for instance, has way fewer trains and relies on buses, which suck and are slow and late and crowded. Another thing people ask about public transportation is, will you get deported for asking your mom if she has her passport on the bus? Do you have to be completely silent? That's definitely exaggerated. Japanese people talk all the time, though you'll probably piss people off if you're vociferous. For my audience, that means loud. Question 4. How expensive is Japan? Cheap. Way cheaper than your cost of living. I mean, maybe, I don't know, Google it. But rent is cheap, the apartments are tiny, food is cheap, entertainment is cheap, you're not expected to tip. There are still too many cash-only businesses, but that's improving slowly, and the yen remains weak, so now is a great time to travel to Japan. Depending on how much you like crowds, I don't know, because you won't be the only tourist with that thought. A lot of people have heard about Japan's shopping and ask our 5th question, does Japan have the best customer service in the world? Japanese customer service used to follow strict service guidelines. For instance, sales clerks would carry your stuff to the exit, then bow deeply until you walked away, or maybe press the elevator buttons for you and bow until the doors closed. They'd refuse to let the customer do anything. They meticulously package your items with bows and tape. That's becoming more relaxed now. And despite the grand gestures and deep bows, individualized customer service, or like thinking outside the box, not so much. When I first moved here, I went to an electronics store to buy, I don't know, an HDMI cable or something. And I wasn't sure if it fit into my device because, well, I guess I'm dumb as f*** and had never seen an HDMI cable before, and I asked what their return policy was. I then waited 45 minutes while the clerk panicked and ran to the back to ask their boss, who asked me what the problem was, who then also panicked and got their manager, who called corporate because I was the first person in history to ask that, and then handed me a printed paper that said no returns. Admittedly, that epitomizes the experience when anything goes outside what's expected in Japan, but if you're someone who asks for a personalized menu item every time you go out, you'll be disappointed, I guess. Speaking of electronics, lots of people ask about Japan's technology. Question 6. How futuristic is Japan? Well, this is the website from that electronics store, so you tell me. I mean, that doesn't answer the question, but I do think it's funny that their websites look like they were designed by Moses. They say Japan's been living in the year 2000 since the 80s, and that's mostly true. They were advanced for a long time, but you may be surprised if you visit now. Something they teach you in business school is to give away bonuses with your core offering to enhance perceived value. For this next question, I'm going to give my loyal subscribers a 4-fer. If you're not subscribed, click off, please. Question 7. Is Japan as cool as my TikToks make it seem? Japan is as clean as it looks. In 1995, a doomsday cult put nerve gas in subway trash cans, and in a very Japanese way of handling the problem, Japan just got rid of its trash cans and people started taking their trash home. I've heard they're putting more in now, though. Beyond cults, is Japan safe? Super safe. Bear in mind I'm a man. No. A living legend. But I've never felt unsafe walking alone, late, at night. How's the food? Food is excellent. If you're a foodie, you'll love Japan. Though some food in tourist spots is getting worse. And lastly, the scenery is as beautiful as it seems on TikTok. The landscapes are amazing, the shrines and temples are awesome. Wow, it was physically painful to give away so much for our last question, but at least the only people still watching are subscribers. I actually get asked this all the time. Question 8, do Japanese people stare at you? Do they stop you on the street and ask to take a picture because you're a foreigner? A white god? No, absolutely not. For the picture thing, I do get people staring at me, but that's because they rarely get the chance to gaze upon a visage as glorious as mine. For question 9, let's go with one of the most common questions I see online. What's dating like in Japan? If you're a white loser in your home country, is it easy to get hot Japanese girls just by existing? And I swear to God, some people really think, well, they're Asian. Of course they won't care about my hygiene, Japanese proficiency, or problematic opinions about women. I don't even really want to give a take here because I do think white dudes and Asian women have some ineffable, let's call it gravitational pull. But if you're the type of person who's asking this question, the answer is you will remain lonely in Japan. Finally, question 10. Is Japan's reputation for insane bureaucracy exaggerated? Something that might require a click on a website in your country will require forms in triplicate, faxed, as well as mailed from the post office with your personal seal called a hanko to a location down the street that will not allow you to deliver the forms in person in Japan. So, no. Now, those were the fun questions. If you're seriously considering moving to Japan or are interested in a critical analysis of a foreigner's lived experience, I'm about to discuss it. But if you want to keep a romantic view of Japan, then maybe don't watch the rest. Viewer discretion is advised. All right, so let's rip the Band-Aid off. Is Japan racist, and how has Japan changed over the last several years regarding foreigners? Japan is playing ranked racism on a competitive server, and anyone who tells you otherwise is coping or selling a course on how to pick up Japanese girls, but obesity here is like non-existent, so just deadlift twice and you should be good to go. The thing you need to understand is that 3% of Japan's population is foreign, and that's a record high. It is an extremely homogenous country. Japan's immigration policies are a systemic challenge to immigrants. Its asylum rate is very low, it does a poor job attracting skilled labor. Learning Japanese is not like learning English or Spanish or Mandarin. You can only really use it in Japan, but it's necessary here. It's just hard to be a foreign resident in Japan. And it's an island. Sneaking across the border isn't really a thing. Additionally, anti-immigration sentiment is increasing for 2 major reasons. 1, it wins elections. Nationalism is rising across the globe. And 2, for decades, the economy in Japan was frozen in time. Salaries stayed the same, but things cost the same. Recently, that changed. If your whole life you made $50,000 a year and a gallon of milk cost 50 cents, when that gallon becomes $1, then $2, then $3, but you still only make $50,000, it feels like your quality of life is deteriorating, right? And with the weak yen, a load of tourists are coming in. They're doing things Japanese people can't afford because everything feels cheap to them. Businesses are raising prices to make money off the tourists. Maybe a hotel you used to visit every summer with your family for $20 now costs $200. Restaurants are more expensive. So Japanese people are seeing a bunch of foreigners who, again, are supposed to be uncommon, living a better life than they are, which has bred resentment. Combined with nationalist politicians gaining influence, telling you that your problems are from foreigners, it's a recipe for disdain and anger. It's important to realize that Japan has historically been an insular country with an entrenched rejection of the foreign. I have a friend here who runs a successful medical practice but struggled to get started because he went to school in the US and then got iced out for not being truly Japanese when he came back. Kids get bullied for having a Korean mom. They're not considered Japanese enough. Many Japanese are super proud of Japaneseness, and some right-wingers would rather see Japan destroyed than become not Japanese. You'll see signs on restaurants saying Japanese only. My burning hot take years ago is that Japan wouldn't be here in like 50 years, and my new hot take is that it's not quite as hot a take. From an economic and demographic perspective, Japan desperately needs change, but I don't see that happening. So how has any of that affected the lives of foreigners over the past few years? When I first came to Japan in 2023, I'd say that people were very polite, but not necessarily nice. Now I think people are less polite. I've been hearing that Japanese ex-users have been exposing Japanese xenophobia or whatever for Americans recently, but the internet is not reflective of real life. Obviously, there are assholes online everywhere. Japanese social media users have also been commenting kuni no kaere on college graduation posts from foreigners, meaning go back to your country. In daily life, there's been a palpable change, but people aren't attacking you on the street, for the most part. It's more, visible microaggressions, coupled with some nationalist nutjobs who are doing things like setting fires in Shibuya or running anti-immigration rallies. Now, if you're like, yeah, whatever, I still want to move, let's walk through the process. Is it easy to immigrate to Japan? You're unlikely to get a good job unless you speak Japanese, and the current administration is pretty nationalist and anti-immigration, so it is actively making it more difficult for foreigners to move to Japan long term. Their ideal scenario is, if you come at all, you work jobs for low salaries, pay taxes, fund healthcare, pensions, etc., then leave and go back to your country when you retire. One of the easiest ways to enter Japan is actually as a student. Japanese language schools offer student visas for up to several years, and some are just visa mills. You pay tuition and get resident status. You can then use that as a foothold to find a job and get a work visa. So let's talk job prospects. Well, teaching English is a thing, though everyone I've asked said it sucks and doesn't pay, and visa policy changes may be hindering that option shortly. If you have a basic or intermediate level of Japanese, you can easily work as a recruiter, but you're largely paid on commission, so be ready to produce. If you're interested, leave a comment and I can let you know some companies I know hire for those positions. Have you seen those popular salaryman grind until you die, I'm so miserable videos recently? When I've asked foreigners and Japanese about work-life balance, they mostly agree that insane work culture is outdated. Something that may surprise you is that Japan is actually not very productive. It is important to show up and look like you're working, stay long hours, don't leave until the boss leaves. Those things do exist, but you're not necessarily doing much. And it's basically impossible to fire people once you pass your probationary period. There are historic and economic reasons for this, but it's kind of dry, so just know that Japanese companies favor culture fit more than experience, and once you get in, you're golden. In general, companies would rather hire fresh graduates than do mid-career hiring, so right after college is the ideal time to look for work, though I've heard those norms are changing. And despite a lower cost of living, salaries are obviously lower than in many countries. It's not like you'll be making a US salary and paying $600 in rent. Once you're here, your first task will be housing. Finding an apartment can be challenging because no law prohibits landlords from explicitly refusing to rent to foreigners. I mean, I imagine this happens secretly all over, but it is hilarious that in Japan, a landlord can be like, no, we don't want any Chinese or black, white, Indian, whatever race you are. Reddit said 15% of apartments are available to be rented by foreigners, while 30% of landlords claim they would not rent to foreigners. I mean, I have no idea how accurate those numbers are, but that sounds right, if not a little high. In my apartment, I'm near a cemetery. Now, I've lived next to cemeteries before, and it doesn't really bother me, but Asia is a little more superstitious. Can you guess what side of the apartment complex foreigners are allowed to live on? Finally, you must be prepared for strict adherence to nonsense rules everywhere. Rules in Japan tend to be like tautologies that follow circular logic, and no one will make an exception for anything. It's usually best to just do it wrong at first, but never ask permission. If you ask someone, why is this the rule? The most common answer is, it's the rule because it's the rule, followed by, I don't know why, or maybe because that's how we've always done it. Japanese culture favors predictable outcomes and is inherently risk averse. This is kind of off topic, but did you know Japan struggles with entrepreneurship and it's really damaging the economy? Japan consistently ranks poorly in entrepreneurial metrics and has way fewer unicorns than a country with its GDP should have. A big part of the reason is Japan's risk aversion. Actually, the government is ostensibly trying to attract foreign entrepreneurs, but a lot of the policies are self-defeating, so it's not really effective yet. So anyway, don't expect to question how something might be done better in Japan, just follow the rules. Now, I want to mention that there are exceptions to literally everything I said in this video. Japan is a big country, and your experience may vary wildly from mine. For instance, some foreign Asian professors have told me that they experienced discrimination that I don't think ever would have applied to me as a white American, and vice versa. I also have American friends who love living here and never plan to leave, but I would not live in Japan long term. And I'm sure there are people from your country who create a stereotype that if an outsider applied to everyone from your country, you'd be like, no, we're not all like that. You know, is everyone from the US a MAGA-supporting, war-mongering school protector? Yes, actually, surprisingly. No, you can't judge everyone from a country as behaving like some hive mind. I've lived in America, Europe, and Asia, and it's trite, but people are people everywhere, just like you and me. It should go without saying, but sometimes that gets lost in online discourse. And look, I got this fat Pikachu recently, which is an exact replica of the one some of us had as babies, and it's only sold in Japan, so that counts for something. Like and subscribe for more generationally exceptional content.